What is up, Pacer Nation? Welcome to the Pacer Pulse podcast, the heartbeat of Indiana basketball. And today, guys, I wanted to go over another trade report that I've seen come out today. And this was reported by Jake Fisher, who is a pretty well-known NBA insider. So it's not just some random source out there on the internet. It's coming from a legitimate source. But he talks about how we have made a call for Onyeka Okongwu for the Atlanta Hawks to gauge their interest in trading him. And I just wanted to cover that today because I thought it was very interesting. It's a guy that I've covered on a past trade podcast that I did like a mock trade over, and I'll do one again today just to kind of show what it could possibly take to get him. And very intrigued by him as a player. So that's why I wanted to do kind of a separate episode on him. But even in that article, Jake Fisher also mentioned that, about us calling about Daniel Gafford, Ivica Zubac, Yves Missi. And if you guys haven't heard it, back on January 7th, I did a podcast episode where I kind of break down each of those three guys and discuss how they could fit this team, how they could improve our team in the areas that we really need help in, and just how they're impacting their teams right now, like this season. So if you haven't heard that one yet, I would go check it out. But it was back on January 7th. And then yesterday I did a podcast too where I talked about two blockbuster trades that we could do that could vault us back into title contention. And one of those involved Zubac. And I put together a trade package that I think maybe the Clippers would take. I'm not sure, but you guys let me know what you think on that and go back and listen to it if you haven't heard it yet. But today I kind of want to do the same thing, but with Onyeka Okongwu, because I haven't really dived into him on a lot of these podcasts just yet. I mean, I mentioned him in passing pretty much about trading for him, essentially, and put together a trade package, but that was pretty much the extent of it. But I really like his game, and he's about 6 years into the NBA right now, and this is like his first year where he's really gotten a lot of starter minutes. I think he started at least like 21 games or so like pretty much the majority of the games. And I know I don't think that's what Atlanta planned on, of course. Once they brought Porzingis on, I think they wanted him to start. But he's been so injured with that illness that he has where they've had no choice but to start Okongwu. But I believe he's actually been a very solid player for them. But then I think I heard or I saw a report where the Hawks were like questioning if he's the solution to the long-term center spot because they may believe he's too small or doesn't have the right size. So if you're trying to find a knock on Okongwu, that would probably be your number one knock, is he's about 6'10" and like 240. So obviously not insanely tall, right? Not what you really see in the NBA nowadays, where guys are easily over 7 foot, like the Zach Edey's, Wembanyama, of course, Zubac, like over 7 foot. Just a lot of those bigger centers that you see nowadays, Steven Adams. So he doesn't have that kind of size, so maybe he might struggle getting bullied against some of those players. But he brings a lot to the table that I think could really fit this team well. That's why I was so intrigued by this report. And I was also intrigued by the fact that I believe we're just casting a pretty wide net in terms of centers. I don't think we're really focusing on any center that does anything particularly. Like, I don't think we're focusing on, let's just get a floor spacing center. I think they're looking for any sort of upgrade. And I think having Jay Huff as like a backup option at least allows you more flexibility in what you look for, because obviously he can shoot from three. It at least gives you that dimension if you want to go that route. And then we do have our small ball options with Obi at the 5, and then what we kind of practiced this year a little bit with Furphy and Siakam. I'm not saying that's going to be something we go to, but just different lineups that we can work with and have more versatility with. So I think Okongwu can really provide that too. I think he could play next to like a Jay Huff in a lineup, or just allow different combinations to work pretty well together too. So first, I want to kind of go over what he's averaging this year. And so far this season, he's played in 40 games, so he's been pretty durable. And he's averaging 16 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. He's shooting 48% from the field, 36% from 3. And he's shooting like 76 from the free throw line. And his effective field goal percentage is about 55.7. But all in all, very good stats. I mean, that would beat out Miles Turner's stats from last year, essentially. I mean, besides maybe the 3-point shooting, or it's pretty close. But all in all, I think he potentially could be a better center than Miles, or maybe he already is, honestly. In my opinion, I think he is. because he can do so many more things. And what I'm also intrigued about Okongwu is I think he can guard out in space a lot more, where maybe he'd be able to switch on screens. I mean, I'm not sure exactly. I don't know every nuance of his game fully, but I do think he has more of that switchability aspect to his game where he can switch out onto like smaller guards and at least kind of hold his own more than like any center we've ever really had. So it's a very intriguing idea. And he also, I'm pretty sure he's also averaging like one steal and run block a game. So I know he's not like a tremendous rim protector, but he also isn't going to give up like a ton of shots at the rim. Like he's not going to make it easy on guys. Maybe he might struggle against bigger opponents, and that's why the Hawks are questioning if he's a fit. But they've also been interested in Anthony Davis, so I could see where it makes sense if they want to like get assets for Okongwu and bring in Anthony Davis that kind of fill in for that starting center spot for them. If that's the route they want to go, I don't know why they would, but I would bet on the guy that plays games and is 25 years old and still has room to grow. So that's why I'm really intrigued as well. Like he would fit that perfect description of center for the future. He's locked in for like the next 3 years or so at like 15 million per year, if I'm getting that right. So great contract for a starting center that's going to outperform that salary, I would say, especially this year. And he's a decent rebounder, 8 rebounds a game for a guy his size. I think is pretty solid. I mean, I think you take that. Maybe he can up it to like 9 or 10 with us. And even playing with Tyrese next year, he's going to get way more easier shots. Like, yeah, he played with Trae Young a little bit, but he's been out of the lineup a lot this year, Trae Young, before he got traded. So he doesn't really have anybody that's setting him up, like, and especially for like wide open threes, where he's already shown to be a decent 3-point shooter. I'm sure that's not on high volume, but the fact that he kind of has that in his game is highly encouraging. It's a guy that can help space the floor at least, and we know we like to operate with that and really operate with as much space as possible. And I think he could get out and run in our system too, and he helps keep the ball moving. I mean, 3 assists for a big man is pretty good, 3.5. So he's definitely got some playmaking chops to him. So I definitely see the appeal in Okongwu, and I don't know what it would take to give up to get him. I don't even know what the Hawks would be looking for, even if they're interested in moving him. Nowhere did it say that like the Hawks were taking calls on Okongwu. They were just saying how the Pacers called about him. So I just thought it was very interesting, and it was one that I've always been intrigued about. Probably one of my favorite ones that I've been intrigued about. So it was cool to see that it was reported that we at least called about him. Even if they're maybe not looking to trade him, you never know. The Hawks are just kind of like up in the air right now on what they could do. But very intrigued by Okongwu as a player. Like I said, I think he would obviously improve this team dramatically. It comes down to like what I think it would take to get him and if it would be worth trading that to get him. But I don't think it would take a ton, really. And to get that big of an upgrade at center would be huge. I think, like I said, I personally believe he's better than Miles Turner. I get like he hasn't done it at like higher levels, but honestly, Miles last year got played off the floor in the playoffs a lot of times. We were going with Obi Toppin as like a small ball 5 option in the crunch time a lot of times over Miles. Not trying to throw shade at Miles right now, but I'm just trying to say like he would be an upgrade at center, even over Miles. So I also was interested in Okongwu's like advanced stats. So like his advanced on-off numbers, I was curious to like how impactful he was being this year. So like as of right now, it's not been good. Like his differential is negative, so he hasn't necessarily helped the team win games, I guess you would say, if I'm trying to like sum it up easily. But I think you could chalk that up to like just being on a weird Hawks team this year that's just underperformed. They've had different injuries throughout the year. They don't have like a point guard out there, a traditional point guard. So who's really getting them easy shots? And like they're playing through Jalen Johnson, who's amazing, by the way. But like it's just a kind of a weird, funky team. They don't really have like anyone like running the show per se that would help, I think. So he's been basically a negative on the offensive end this year for the Hawks. So he hasn't really benefited their team in that regard. But I honestly think like in our system, he would thrive, and that wouldn't be the case here. So I'm not trying to like paint rose-covered glasses on this and saying he's just the perfect player, but he's definitely a lot better, I think, than what these numbers are showing. And I think on the right team, he would get even more out of him, and he would develop here really well, I think. And he could be with this core for like the longest time if we just lock him in and are able to keep him for the long term even. So I really like the idea. And then defensively this year, he's basically been like neutral on the defensive end. He's not hurting the team. but he's actually, I would say he's just about barely helping the Hawks be better on the defensive end than I would say hurting them. But he's pretty much even almost. But he does help their free throw rate in terms of how many throws they give up for the other team. They don't give many up to the other team when he's on the court. And then he does help prevent offensive rebounds, so it shows like he's good on defense and like rebounding and per se. Turnovers, he does help the team force about an even amount of turnovers. It's not like better or worse when he's on the court. And same for like preventing points on the court. He's a little bit above, like at least benefiting the team. So I would say overall, like he's an effective defensive player. Is he gonna be a defensive player of the year? No, not even close. But I think that like he's not gonna hurt the defense, and he's also not going to probably drastically improve it. So it depends on if we're willing to take that risk and just lean into his like playmaking ability, his rebounding, banking on that he can get better as a defender, which I think he can in the right system and with the right guys around him. I don't think like a lot of these numbers depend on who you're playing with too, I think a lot of times. So take that for what it's worth. But I just wanted to show, like, highlight how he's been impactful this year for the Hawks and what he can maybe kind of bring to the Pacers and how he can also improve on those numbers. Because I think we already know, Pacer Nation, that any guy, like especially a center that plays with Haliburton, is going to play better. And Haliburton basically got Miles Turner paid. So the fact that like Miles threw shade at Haliburton was so confusing because he's the one that got you paid, man. So we saw what he did with Miles. So imagine like a guy of Okongwu's level of talent. I think he could even take off even more. Maybe he could be like an 18-9 guy for us. I mean, not saying he has to be like a go-to scorer, but I think like in a lineup, let's say we had him, Haliburton, Siakam, Neesmith, and Nembhard in the lineup. Let's just hypothetically say that. He could be like the third go-to option in that lineup to me. And then you got like Nembhard as a fourth, Neesmith as a fifth, just kind of filling out the rest of those roles. And you never know what draft pick we get to, so maybe that person ends up being in the lineup eventually. You have a lot of options at least. But very intrigued by the idea. And I'm not saying, so I am by no means saying he is this player at all. So don't quote me on saying, oh, you're comparing him to this guy. No, it's not that at all. I'm just saying in the mold of what kind of center he kind of is, I think of like a Bam Adebayo, where they're both kind of the same size. They're undersized, but they have the strength and what it takes necessarily to like play inside and play good defense and still not hurt their team in that way. I mean, obviously he's not an all defensive player like Bam Adebayo, but he can move his feet a little bit on the perimeter, I would say. And I think that's a skill that we could definitely use. We haven't had in a long time, obviously, or even ever probably in a center. So I know some people thought Miles could, but he was better than J Huff, that's for sure. It's just, this is like a different level of being able to move your feet on the perimeter. Kind of like Isaiah Jackson, of course. I forgot, like with him, but even better of a player, of course. So I get very intrigued about the possibilities with Okongwu. And I think if they were willing to trade him and get off of him, I think we have to heavily consider that. Honestly, I think for me personally, he would be second on that list to like Zubac, maybe a close first, just because he's younger and he still has even more room to grow. And that's what I love about that. And he could help us now. So in my personal opinion, I still think Zubac would be the best get just because of how good he was last year, how good he's been throughout his career, and what he is good at would really help our team in the areas that we struggle with. But man, Okongwu, his potential to still even be even better, being 25 to 26, still having a pretty solid year, I think, for the Hawks. That was a hard one to argue against. So he's a close first for me in terms of who I would like want to target. And I know we've been interested in like Claxton too, from Jake Fisher reported that as well. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that one. He's probably pretty close to the bottom of that total poll for me. So, but if we got him, I'm not upset, but it just depends what we give up, of course. So I went into the trade machine, guys, and I wanted to just kind of break down like what it would take to possibly get Okongwu or what salaries it would take. So I'm not even sure if the Hawks would take this. I'm assuming they're trying to win games. It's hard to tell with the Hawks right now, guys. I'm assuming just because they're wanting to get Anthony Davis possibly, but we don't know how truthful that is, and there's other teams involved. So I think there's a lot of dominoes that would need to fall, and if we're able to get like a guy like Okongwu, or even it be a possibility. So I'm sure they want to get Davis first before they even make a decision on a Okongwu trade, or else they won't have any center. So if they're trying to win this year, they would be pretty much out of luck. But they're playing with house money this year because obviously the Pelicans traded them their pick. So no matter how bad they are or good they are, they're still going to get a top 5 pick probably in the draft, which is just insane to even say. But so I'll get into this proposed trade that I mocked up. So this may be too much, I don't know, but given the current players' values. So, oh, and I also want to point out, guys, before I say this trade, Isaiah Jackson, officially as of today, he can be traded because he signed that extension or whatever. So we had to wait to be able to trade his contract until January 15th, which is today. So be on the lookout, guys. I'm not saying like a trade is imminent, but I think they have been waiting for his contract to be available to put together some salaries for some of these centers we've been hearing out there. Because they all, if you piece him and like another guy together, it kind of adds up to where you got the perfect amount of salary to make a trade. As long as the other team would want to do it, of course. But I would keep an eye on that, guys. I mean, I think now we're going to get real serious, I think, in terms of being in serious trade discussions. I mean, I know we've been out there looking, but I think now that he is eligible. And I'm not going to like be a conspiracy guy here, but like Jackson's been out forever with this concussion thing, which I don't know much about concussions, so don't quote me on this, but like he's been out for a while. Like I don't think you usually see guys that get a concussion and are out for this long of a period of time. So I kind of wonder if they're like sitting him out and they're like, "Hey man, like we're going to be looking to trade you for a starting center. So you don't have to rush back. We don't have to rush you back on the court." So I'm not saying that's happening, but like I would not be surprised either. So don't quote me on that like fully, but I see that being the case. But in this trade, I have us trading Isaiah Jackson, Jarris Walker, and a 2027 first round pick for Onyeka Okongwu, and that works straight up. Salary wise, it was perfect. I mean, we take like almost a $1 million cap hit on this deal, but I like 734K. But really, that's not that bad. And I think we have ability to like move some other salaries if we want. But to get your center of the future at that kind of price, I would say if the Hawks are willing to do that, I don't know what they want necessarily, so I'm not sure if they'd even be interested. But I think that's a win-win all around. So obviously, I think we would do that in a heartbeat. Maybe it takes a little more. I don't know necessarily how they view Okongwu. But I'm just trying to paint a picture, guys, of what it would take to possibly get Okongwu, what salaries we could probably put together to do it. I know Walker's been playing a lot better lately, so maybe his value's kind of gone up, and teams view him as more of a positive asset. I think they could use more shooters as well, the Hawks. So if they're like, hey, last 20-plus games, Walker, he's been shooting lights out, kind of provides them another small forward on their team that they could try to develop to former lottery pick. Then they still keep a big man on Jackson at least to back up, let's say, Anthony Davis if they trade for him, or at least be a rotational big for them. Whatever they want to do with that, then the first round pick, of course. So I think that's pretty enticing trade for the Hawks, considering, if they are willing to give up Okongwu and they're getting future assets. So I think it's a hard deal to pass up on. Maybe wrong, so I don't know. But I just thought it was very interesting, guys, and I just wanted to cover that today. I thought that article was very interesting, and like I said, I hadn't really covered what Okongwu's strong suits really are, and I think he's definitely a guy that would be a strong pick and roll player with Haliburton. He could be a pick and pop, roll to the rim. He could be a lob threat. He can finish inside. He's got good post moves, good footwork, and I think he can kind of take some guys off the perimeter, like off the dribble some. He just adds another dimension to our offense, and especially in the center position that we haven't had really. I mean, Miles is kind of just strictly a pick and pop type of guy. Okongwu can kind of do both, I think. He can crash. He can do the short roll, maybe hit some mid-range shots. He could do pick and pop it for a three. I just think he would provide a lot of versatility with our offense, and then even defensively, he's going to be able to switch out there. Imagine him and like Siakam being able to switch depending on like which guy they're guarding, and I just think it would work quite a bit. I like the fit. He could get out and run too. He's athletic in that regard, and I think he's got more to his game that he can develop. And he's going to help keep our offense moving. He's not going to stop the ball, dominate the ball in that sort of way. So very intrigued by this trade, guys. And if you're listening on YouTube, just let me know what you think in the comments section. What do you think of Okongwu, if you would like his fit, if you think he'd be a good player for us. And always, please like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. It would mean a lot to me. And then you can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. And it would just mean the world to me, guys. And this is just all meant to be a Pacer fan podcast, guys. I'm a diehard fan talking about all of this. And I can't get enough of the team. So it's just maybe it's a good or bad thing. I don't know. I'm just thankful at least that my wife is a fan of the team too. So we get to watch every game and it's not like bothering her at all. So I'm really thankful for that. But I just can't appreciate you guys enough, Pacer Nation, and I will talk to you soon.